You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damien Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damien Swaby.
Hello, and welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with me, Damien Swaby. Today on the podcast, I speak to Adam Epstein. He is a highly accomplished video editor, known for his exceptional ability to craft compelling narratives through visual storytelling. With a career spanning over a decade, Epstein has worked on a diverse range of projects, showing his versatility and expertise in the field. Epstein's editing work includes The Beer, Documentary Now, The Actress starring Emma Stone, Complicit starring Scarlett Johansson, and he has also worked on the BET Awards. Each of these projects presented unique challenges and opportunities, allowing Epstein to demonstrate his adaptability and creativity. For instance, his work on Kanye's Place, a parody sketch, showcased his ability to balance humor and tension effectively. His collaboration with Arnold Schwarzenegger on a project showcased his ability to work effectively with high-profile figures in the industry. Epstein is also passionate about mentoring the next generation of video editors. He regularly conducts workshops and seminars, sharing his insights and expertise with aspiring professionals. Despite his many accomplishments, Epstein remains committed to continuously learning and improvement, constantly exploring new technologies and techniques to enhance his craft. Hi, Adam. How are you today?
I'm well, Damien. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thanks so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. And for full disclaimer, everyone who's listening to this live on Twitter, that I was having technical issues with an old laptop, a somewhat old iMac, but we've solved the problems and we're here now. And Adam, thank you so much for graciously waiting while I sorted those out. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's great having you on, and you've done such an amount of brilliant work. Tell us, how did you get to the decision process that you wanted to become an editor, and what was your first steps in getting there in the end?
Sure. It wasn't really like a linear process in the sense that, I was younger and looking up to all these great editors and being like, well, that's what I want to do someday. But for me, I started out wanting to be a writer more than anything. And then the combination of, enjoying creating my own stories and also having a bit of a tech geek side. When I was younger, I liked making skate videos with my friends. So it was, VHS to VHS. And then when mini DV came out and, being able to put just text on video. I remember the first time I saw that was mind blowing. So it was more about just filmmaking as a whole and working on things with friends. And then when I was in college, I helped start a sketch comedy show, and we had a TV studio there. So that was an exercise in, everyone was making their own stuff. So I really kind of fell in love with the editorial process and saw that as another way to kind of continue writing without actually sitting down at a blank page and typing out the words. Mm-hmm. And then after school, I started working in commercial post-production, and that was like my real kind of, true film school experience, working with like really great directors, great editors. We were still shooting on film at the time, so it was learning how to be incredibly buttoned up and work on the back end of that. And then I transitioned from commercial to more kind of long form comedy. I worked at Saturday Night Live for 10 seasons, working on the film pieces there. And, you work with a million people and you kind of establish a network, and that kind of leads to different opportunities. And I've just been really lucky to work with great people more than anything. And that's the real secret, is find like-minded people that you enjoy working with and that enjoy working with you, and try to lean on that. Sorry, that was really long-winded, but
no, that was excellent. And I'm amazed that you was there for 10 seasons. That's credit to you, man. I would take my hat off to you if I was wearing one. But when it comes to writing, what was it about writing that you enjoyed, and why was writing the first creative endeavor for you?
I just think, the act of creation in and of itself is a pretty satisfying undertaking. And I just like the fact, with writing, it's pure creativity. I have an idea, I want to get it out. If I can make myself, laugh or find something interesting, hopefully other people will enjoy that too. But yeah, I feel that, that's the start of all of it. And then in my own work now, what I'm always trying to do editorially is take, ideally, a great script, and then bring the tools that I have to make that the best version of what it is, and kind of, support and elevate the basis of everything. So yeah, to me, it's the fact that writing is really, that's the genesis of all of it, which I really like.
And 10 seasons, again, 10 seasons on Saturday Night Live. There must be a memorable moment for you as an editor that you can tell us about.
Oh man, too many. Every week there was madness in the best way. It was pretty much all our pieces were 24-hour film festival style things, where we would shoot the day before it was on air, and it would be just, a mad rush to the end. So, I'd say, like, not necessarily like one specific thing, but very often we would be delivering something right before air, and we wouldn't know if we got in the correct version until it came on in the TV, till it came on the screen. So, oftentimes it was very that kind of cliche of send something, and then you're running through the halls, and then you go down to the floor and you're waiting to see if it's going to be the right one. And, if it worked out, and when it would be, what you were trying to get on air, is just a really great kind of the catharsis and the relief of like, oh my God, we just killed ourselves for, a day and a half, and everything worked out great. And now let's do it again next week, I guess. But yeah, it was just really, when everything worked out well, it was extremely satisfying, which I think is why people kind of keep coming back to an environment which is pretty unhealthy and intense.
You mentioned earlier about doing stuff on film, and technology's evolved and changed in many, many ways for filmmakers over the years. How would you say it's affected you yourself as an editor in this digital age we're working in now?
Yeah. I'd say that I was very lucky because I was really around right when the transition from film to tape, as far as what you were acquiring on or what you were delivering on, was really kind of really happening. Like, pre-HD, but when we were still shooting commercial stuff on film and then transferring to digibeta for mastering. For me, the thing that I think is kind of the most important or influential thing that's helped out a lot was when we were working in film, and the money was so big to be working in like a telecine room, and the timelines were so specific. You really had to be organized. You didn't have metadata searches. You weren't able to tag stuff. You had really just like paper lists of shots, and you couldn't miss anything, and it really forced you to be extremely organized. So I've tried to take that sort of mentality that I learned kind of coming up in a more traditional film post setting, and apply that to all the advantages that you get with the digital tools. So I try to almost treat digital as if it's film, but then also know that we have like a lot more flexibility and kind of power behind us as users on the back end.
I see. That sounds amazing. That really does. And you became the senior film editor of Saturday Night Live, am I right by saying?
Yeah, I mean, whatever that means. I was just there. I was there long enough, and there were enough people that had started after I was there that I just think by the nature of like, oh, this guy's older than everyone else, so I think let's give him a senior title. Yeah.
It sounds great, and I'm sure it means more than that. You're being modest. I mean, you mentioned how things have changed regarding the technology. When you have newer editors coming into the company, the production, who haven't had the experience you've had, how can your experience help them and guide them to become better editors?
I think so much of it, at least when I was coming up, was really observing the people who had been doing something, longer than you have, and trying to not necessarily copy, but observe and then ask questions and really be upfront about stuff. When I'm working now with younger assistants, the only thing that I will really actually like annoy me is something happening or something being confusing and them not asking about it and trying to figure it out, or being like afraid to say, I don't know something. But I would say, like, if you're younger and you don't know something, just ask. Feel free to ask. Feel free to, um, check in to see if it's, working correctly, as opposed to, being unsure of yourself. Like, oh, I don't want to show that I don't know. And then something will kind
Yeah.
of, start happening behind the scenes. And then once it's really a problem, then that becomes an issue. So I would say when you're young and starting out, just never be afraid to, say what you don't know or what you're trying to figure out, or, asking for help along the way. And editorially, I feel like that community is really, more than others, I think, like, really open to sharing knowledge and
Lovely.
bringing people in and helping out, especially when people are starting off. So yeah, I'd say just be curious and ask questions, and try to find the things and the people that you like the work they're doing, and kind of break down how you would then go about doing it, and then start doing your own stuff, that you kind of branch off from that.
That sounds like a really great advice for the young people that would have been working with you. I mean, did you have any mentors growing up as an editor?
Yeah, in the commercial space, I was really lucky to work with this guy. His name was Rob Watsky. This is when I was in Los Angeles working in more traditional commercial post, and he, in the late '80s to kind of mid '90s, did just so many iconic commercial pieces. He did all of the Spike Lee, Mars Blackman, Michael Jordan,
Wow.
black and white spots. He did
Yeah.
all of the, like, Joe Pitka, Ray Charles Pepsi stuff, all like the Griffey Nike things, Hair Jordan with Bugs Bunny. And so he was just working
Wow.
with incredible people on incredibly high profile stuff. So seeing, how he would assemble that, and then almost more than the actual editorial was seeing how he dealt with people in a room, and how he dealt with, like, really, kind of powerful directors and big egos and people with strong opinions, and the way that he was able to, gently negotiate and navigate and keep the mood positive and still get ideas across. That was the thing that was really priceless. And I think that's the thing that a lot of times these days, there are less opportunities, unfortunately, to really see that kind of, interpersonal dynamic. And I think any way that more of that can come back, the better, versus just like, what software should I use? Or, what are some cool keyboard shortcuts, or what are some good
Yeah.
plugins? Like, that stuff you can learn, but like, so much of professional editorial is dealing with people and understanding, interpersonal dynamics. So I was really lucky to have, like, a lot of great firsthand experience seeing how that went.
Why do you think that's happening less and less?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it is the technology. Like, when I was an assistant, I would be in the room with the editor I was working with and the clients 100% of the time. Whether or not that was just to kind of, make sure that nothing was falling by the wayside, or when I was young and working with, much more kind of traditional people who started, like, truly, on a Steenbeck and, like, gluing and splicing film. I was pretty fast compared to them on an Avid. So a lot of times they would be in the room kind of running the show and dealing with the clients, and they'd be like, hey, get in the chair and, and drive, basically, because you'll be able to, you can click the buttons and, the software better than I do. So I think now there's less of direct kind of shared experience between editors and assistants, especially with remote work, which makes things, it's, if you're established and you can work on stuff, it's amazing. If you're coming up and you really kind of want to see the way, a team of post-production people work with production and with creatives and with producers, I think it's a lot harder now. And I'd say, I think that kind of just goes back to trying to ask as many questions and be open to learning and showing that you don't know stuff. That for me was the kind of the quickest way to learn. But I don't know. I talk about that with people all the time now, as far as, like, if you're young and coming up, where I wish I knew. I'm not sure, that those same environments exist in the same way that they did before. I think everything's kind of, especially, post pandemic and with, like, much more remote work, that's become a lot harder, I think.
So how does the editing process differ between short and long form projects such as Staten Island Summer and Killing Gunther?
When you're in scene work and you're doing your kind of, micro edits, and does this shot work? Does this, couple minutes play? That all feels pretty similar. it's much more that in, a long form, either like a feature, if you're working on a whole series, so much of it is then about the macro view. Once you have, everything working in the micro, it's like, okay, well, that scene works. But now this thing that's happening 20 minutes later is going to kind of bump in a weird way that we hadn't thought about when we were working, on our specific scene here. So we're going to zoom out and take like a larger, more holistic view. And when you're in short form, everything kind of gets truncated and condensed. But then also when you're working in short form, like if you're working on a 15-second or a 30-second commercial, every single cut becomes kind of hyper analyzed in a way that things in a long form, not that you don't like pay attention to them, but it might kind of not be as incredibly precious and precise when there's only like 4 edits in a whole piece. So it's the difference between like what kind of level of focus are you giving this kind of big picture 1,000-yard view, or this truly in the details kind of micro edit focus. But I think they're pretty similar all in all, though.
Is there any you prefer?
I'm always looking forward to whichever one I'm not doing at the moment. In the sense that when I'm on, like a really long form project, I'm like, oh God, all I want right now is just, something that would be done in like a week and then it's just done. And then when I'm doing like a short form thing, I'm like, oh, I wish it was just, something that would be on for 6 months and, really kind of building it out. So I like the fact that I've been lucky to kind of be able to sort of jump back and forth from time to time between short form and long form. And I think they each scratch an itch that the other one can't. So I like the variety.
That makes sense. I completely understand what you mean by saying that. And what unique challenges and rewards have you encountered while working on acclaimed TV shows like Documentary Now?
It's like anything. It's always problem solving. It's trying to find the truth and the best version of whatever it is you're working on, and really trying to actualize the writers and the director's vision. I think one of the things that editors have to remember a lot of times is, obviously this is, it's your work and you're putting it forward and you're building stuff. But at the end of the day, you're still kind of like a hired hand, ideally like, a core member of the team, but you're there to ideally make the best version of what the people who have brought you in on this project are looking for. And so when I'm working on, a show, it's about getting something that I think is working well, and then constantly there being a dialogue between myself and the director, myself and the producers, the writers on a piece, to make sure that the kind of the collaborative team aspect of everything is getting the final product to where it ideally needs to be. And then it varies from show to show and project to project, and there's not like a one size fits all for shows, which is another thing that I like about post, is it's always, even if you're doing similar things, it's always like a little different, and you're always learning something new, or playing with a different style, or a new piece of technology allows you to do things in a different way. So it's a constantly evolving industry, which I love.
With the streaming platforms out now, there's so many of them, and so many of them are spending quite a lot of money, I think, from what I can see. And with evolving technology and with actors on strike at the moment, are there any foreseeable other problems you can see that will be in the industry for you as an editor?
Oh man, I mean, there's always problems. I mean, I think I'm kind of not wary, but aware of the way that AI and automation is sort of going. I'm not necessarily afraid that all humans are going to be out of work. I think there will definitely be kind of a contraction and a bit of a winnowing, mainly because there will be enough productions and enough producers who are fine with something being good enough, and not necessarily like a full nuanced human thought out thing that comes from a direct place of inspiration. More of like hey, we need to get this out, the machine does a decent enough job, enough people don't care, so great, we'll do that. So the main thing that I'm kind of concerned about is just a general I guess like a lack of nuance in the future. And hopefully there'll be enough people that understand the importance of kind of humans working together and making something from the heart that, there ends up being, enough work and enough jobs to go around to continue that type of work. Hopefully, knock on wood.
Knocking wood.
Yeah.
So one editor I spoke to said he uses AI it's like a collaboration between him and an AI. Do you use AI at all?
Yeah, for some things. I use it, nothing yet that really does anything from a construction standpoint, much more almost like, plugins. Things for audio cleanup, which are pretty amazing now to really do a pretty great job, even if it's not for final audio, but just, initial cuts that are going to producers. Anytime that I can avoid a note that's something technical that's eventually going to be dealt with, and focusing much more on like story and structure and character and flow, that's great. So I've been using that a lot as far as just kind of initial vocal cleanup on things. Big fan of like in painting and set extension stuff that's in Photoshop now, which is pretty cool. Just did some of that for the first time on something that actually went to air to needed to reformat something to a different aspect ratio, but we didn't have that in the shot. So you can take a still into Photoshop and, generate a set extension using AI, and it's pretty amazing. And it happens like instantly. So more tools than, a replacement for the editor itself. And I think that's fine. I think that's the ideal situation, is it just becomes another, kind of arrow in your quiver to get to where you're seeing in your head, as opposed to letting the machine really kind of, drive the creative process. It's just another plugin, basically.
Great. I'm going to have to look into some of those plugins because sometimes I'm using Adobe Audition, like I think many of the listeners do sometimes. And maybe it could be faster by using what you've said to use. But tell us about your experience editing The Bear, a good TV show that has been well received in my neck of the woods, which is London, England.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I just feel really lucky more than anything. The team, the creative team on it, I'm friends with all of them. We've worked together on multiple projects in the past. And when I first saw the pilot before it got picked up and before I got brought in, I was like, oh, I love how unique this is. I love how much style goes into it. I love that it's style, but also with a lot of substance behind it as well. And it's just been a great process, all in all. And to me, that is just another kind of reflective of when you're working with people that you're friends with, basically, and like-minded creators. It just makes things, so pleasant, even if it's really intense. Like our turnaround on the show has been, each season was really fast. Basically all of production and all of post was done within 4 months, which is not, I don't recommend it, but yeah, just, the lead editor on the show, Joanna Noggle, who cut the pilot and has done probably 60% of the episodes, and I've done the rest. She's just brilliant and just so inspirational and fun to work with. And the Chris Storer and Joanna Calo, the creators and the showrunners, and Josh Senior, the main EP, everyone's just working just with a really kind of like-minded, no ego. Any idea is, no matter where it's coming from, is, we're going to go with what's feeling good. And it's just, it's great. It's really counter to how intense the show is. It's for something that could be really intense. It's been like a pretty smooth, seamless process. And we're just excited that anyone watched it to begin with, let alone that it's, done well or, crossed over, hit, whatever that means nowadays. It's been again, just luck and gratefulness.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that you've been in that situation. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes people are in situations where they're working with people they may not get on with, or there may be certain issues. Have you encountered such a situation, and how have you dealt with it?
Sometimes, but that's just the nature of just working with people, and oftentimes too, it isn't even that it's not someone that you get on with, it's someone that you do get on with, and you have disagreements, and you have to kind of work through that. I think it's kind of constantly putting yourself in check and looking at the big picture, as far as like, hey, we're not in a coal mine right here. We're working on like TV. Like, yes, we can be very serious and focused about it, but this isn't anything, personal, and it shouldn't be an ego-driven process. It should be, a really kind of open, collaborative thing. And then I think sometimes too, I've definitely dealt more on the commercial side with clients that you might not see eye to eye with. But an older editor told me a long time ago, when I was probably like young and frustrated about something. He's like, listen, all right, the first couple days when it's just making the stuff, like that's fun. That's great. And then the job, what you get the money for, is when you come in and you're working for them. It's not your thing. So don't take it so personally, and don't get mad if they don't go with that decision. Like, you had 2 days or a day or however long to like mess around and like have fun. Like, what a gift. And now for the money, now we do the other stuff. So I've always kind of thought of it that way, and try not to take things, personally. And sometimes people can be, I don't know, kind of shitty, but like whatever. Like, you don't live with them. It's not worth really kind of taking to heart. And it's still, at the end of the day, it's still just TV and movies and commercials.
That's great advice. I'm literally going to take that on board, and I will remember that forever, because I've had some moments, especially this year. I have really had some moments this year, and I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah.
I will be in the future. That's for sure.
There you go.
And how do you approach editing a comedy piece differently from a drama or a documentary, if at all?
I don't have the, really defined rules for, okay, well, this is a comedy, so now I'm going to work on it like this, or, this is dramatic, so I'm going to, do these drama tricks. It's less that. It's more, I think, understanding, why something is working, or what is the truth of the scene that you're working on. And also kind of, put in enough paces to sort of go with your gut and understand first responses. I think that's probably the most important thing, truthfully, as far as the differentiator between comedy and other stuff. You can feel like you can watch, a dramatic scene over and over again and keep refining and focus on details. But I think with comedy, it's really important to remember how something hit you the first time you saw it.
Yeah.
Because, you could be working on something 100 times and really, over and over and driving it in. And even though it is still funny, like, you've lost the element of surprise, which so much of comedy is kind of based on, is, like an unexpected turn or something that hits you in the rhythm that feels a little different, which then, elicits a response that you can't control. So I think it's so much of it is remembering, either when you're watching dailies, how things really, how you see them initially, and then on first constructions, how that felt, and try to have faith, in your own taste, and kind of lean on that.
All makes sense to me. I like what you said. And lastly, you've mentioned that you're mainly made of carbon. Could you elaborate on this humorous note, and perhaps share how humor plays a role in your work or personal life?
Yeah. I mean, I default to, trying to be funny just when I'm talking to people. I don't know if that's a defense mechanism, or I just like, the speed of it. I think that's one of the favorite things in the world, is just, being with a couple friends and just like pinging back and forth as fast as possible. And you're either, kind of like, as you guys would say, taking the piss out of each other, or, just, talking a little shit, or being fast. So my natural instinct is to kind of, lean towards the comedic side of things. So sorry, I forget what the start of the question was.
No, you're mainly made of carbon.
Oh, maybe I'm made of carbon. That's just me being, like, again, as you would say, like a cheeky idiot, pretty much. Just, there's nothing more annoying than having to write, any sort of, bio for any of those things. So yeah, I don't know.
I get you. They are hard.
But or I guess if you want to get like, super esoteric about it, it is, we're all just, kind of meat computers walking around, which is, the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. So I don't know. Yeah.
True.
Everything's, I think, or the comedy stems from the fact that everything is absurd. The longer you kind of think about it, or the more you zoom out. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to take things too seriously also, because, once you take a telescope and look up, you're like, why are we worried about this is ridiculous. So yeah, I guess big picture of that. I think the cosmic joke of everything is maybe probably like the core of my ethos. So yeah.
Okay. Do you think you'll ever write again?
I hope so. My family wants me to. I wrote a column for Tribeca a few years ago that was really fun, kind of about
Cool.
film and creativity, and that was really um, that felt good. But yeah, so like so much things, it's so many things. It's time and availability, and
Yeah.
then you got a mortgage, you got to do all that
Yeah.
great stuff. But yeah, in a perfect world, there would be no excuses, and I would just kind of lean in and make some more stuff. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'd like to read or see what you could put it together. I really would. I feel that you have a voice that needs to be out there as a writer.
Oh, you're very kind.
Adam, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and we'll speak soon.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access. If you like this podcast, share it with friends, leave a comment in the comments section, and hit the subscribe button. If you like